Well, good morning. It is 8:49 a.m. It is December 29th. It is Monday morning, and I am making this video as a part of my newsletter. Now, I had created another video summarizing the issues of 2025 because I felt like I was too, you know, I don't feel as though these issues that are a part of my life are worth sitting here typing out, editing, and having to relive it over and over again. I also do feel as though talking this issue out is more therapeutic than writing it, okay? Because this has been the biggest issue that has destroyed my life, and I feel very offended by the knowledge that I have become aware of, okay? So I had made a video yesterday with a summarization of 2025, which will be located at the very bottom, or close to the middle, I guess, of this newsletter. However, I edit it as I go forward. I'm going to be wrapping it up in a couple of days. This is the last video that I'm going to be adding. This is called Trauma from LDS Drama. Now, yes, this morning I woke up. I woke up around 4 o'clock this morning. And what I was coming to understand was I was focusing on the LDS connection with my past life, as well as me remembering, I talked about some of these people were Seventh day Adventists. I talked about Lisa and her husband are Seventh day Adventists. Tanya and Jim were more like born again type Christians. And I talked about some of the people that I was associated with, my work, who were Catholic and so on and so forth. Okay. And I had talked about Rashawn. Okay. I know that Rashawn played a very large role in my targeting. And I do know that Rashawn, associated with LDS kids when we were growing up. And I forgot, because I'm putting in all of these associations. I know that Rashawn had a friend by the name of Jeremy. I think his name is Jeremy, that I had met a few times in Christmas. Yeah, we had Christmas dinner like at least once or twice or something like that. So maybe Rashawn became a formal member of the LDS Church. Well, what I needed to express was to the LDS Church, and I know I brought them into the subject throughout my research of my past life, before. But what I need to do is I needed to address them one last time, and I do not want to ever have any more communications with you, okay? And the reason why is the messages I'm getting is that I know that you played an integral part in my targeting, okay? I do believe as CB Berganza, as well as Maria Gordon, I know that I've studied a little bit of your belief system as Maria Gordon, and I must have had a curiosity about the LDS Church as a result of being CB Berganza, okay? This is one of the reasons why I used to ask my dad about you guys, why and what made you guys different, how you were distinct from other Christian groups. So I made a point to understand you as much as I possibly could without being a member, okay? And that's it. Okay, I do know that the intuitive messages that I've been getting is that um, your church, and this is, I am not in any way trying to keep drama going on. What I'm trying to do is I need to end this conflict that you have created with my life, okay? You tend to look at me as some sort of celebrity. I have never signed up to be a celebrity, and I do believe I feel completely exploited, okay? And the reason why is because you have allowed or assisted the kids of 533, possibly through Rashawn Gordon, okay? And then allowed or tried to promote this sort of union between me and the Collins family when there is none, okay? Now, I'm bringing this out in the open. Just a couple days ago, I had released a public service announcement addressing this issue, this covert program. And I had talked about how religious institutions they originated this process, this whole covert operation type programs. And I do believe it must have originated possibly with the LDS Church. This is one of the reasons why Nazis and LDS churches in Germany were very closely knit, right? Okay, so what's been going on in the community? I know in the last few months, I dealt with issues relating to the bus system. I've dealt with, rude store clerks, and I know that Jim Culligan as well as Rashawn never thought very highly of me. I, however, do look at myself as someone who has a very close relationship with the divine. I do believe that your church acknowledges my relationship with the divine. However, I do believe that your church was in violation. It is understood that the LDS church, according to me, and I do believe other people within this community acknowledge the fact that your church operated as a cult. You were using other religions to, turn people against me. And I honestly, I look at my life and I look like I feel as though I live a good, clean life. Okay. Regardless of whether you agree of how I live my life, the religious organizations that you associated with, affiliated with, influenced, okay, also operate in different ways other than the LDS church, okay? So there's doctrinal beliefs that the Catholics do not agree with you guys. Seventh-day Adventists do not agree with everything that LDS churches, say or believe, okay? And I, of course, do not believe in everything that the LDS churches believe, but yet you want to make me a target. I do understand that, this has something to do with my father's apparition. Once again, what made me uncomfortable about this, okay, is I had to find all of this information out myself. Okay, I had to find out all of this information myself. I don't ever recall my family telling me that I was this big, whoop-de-doo back in the 1960s. I had to figure it out myself. I had to figure out myself that I was a clone. Okay, I do not consider myself a celebrity. You know why? Because I never signed up any documents saying that I was a celebrity. You guys, and I'm going to refer to the kids of 533, and possibly you guys allowed the kids of 533 to exploit me by perhaps, surveilling me out in public or when I was at work or maybe, when I was living over at Adidas Court or whatever, okay? What I have been is exploited, meaning that I do not get one dime or in my pocket for the exploitation that you guys do towards me, okay? So why I talk about clones and how they get mistreated and how they get dehumanized, okay? This is a result of it. It is not appropriate, okay? So the message I'm also getting right now, I'm going to change slides, okay? Because I really don't like having just one slide for this presentation. Now, of course, the questions that come to my mind, I know that I had a connection, indirect connection with the Mormon Church, SCB Braganza. I talked about my origins in Lancaster as in my time in Lancaster that I found out, okay? And so, as Maria Gordon, other than me studying, Mormon materials and that sort of stuff. And I remember talking to some Mormon kids because I grew up with Mormon kids. My first friend in school or playmate in school, I remember her name, okay? So I was surrounded by a Mormon community in Lancaster, okay? I do know, based on my research, that before I was formulated, they were talking about me coming back as a woman, okay? And the reason why is because a lot of you guys resented the fact that I was so strong in business and that there was a deliberate attempt to prevent me from being able to have that sort of financial flexibility. And see, the thing is somehow or another, I ended up in California. I am grateful that I ended up in California. Here in California, when it comes to employment, marital status is protected. Okay, so that means that I should be able to have a job just like anybody else. I do know that you had my family, my ex-family, and it's important that you recognize that yes, people do have the right to legally walk away from their family members at the age of 18 years old. I do know that you use the excuse of me being a clone. Let me tell you something, this right here is extremely dehumanizing, demoralizing, and illegally. I feel as though, I'm somebody who needs to protect myself from people and organizations such as the LDS Church because of your unethical practices, okay? I do know that you guys have prevented me from having jobs. You have instructed employers to not return my calls. You have basically blocked me for no good reason. When it comes to being an ideal citizen, I would say that I am an ideal citizen. When it comes to people who walk walk in the footsteps of the divine, I would say that would be me. Okay, that is not me bragging, but I am somebody who has a very close relationship with the divine. And yes, I care, and yes, it matters. I myself would never stoop so low to participate in any of the activities that you did. Okay, so when it comes to Gordon's occupational engineering, that was created because of the fact that I had been exploited, and I also needed, through things like Indeed.com. I do understand that Mormons own a lot, okay? I do understand that you guys own businesses, entities, so on and so forth, and I do understand the integral role that you guys have played historically regarding things relating to COINTELPRO, as well as Nazi, how Nazis would be able to track people through programs like, you know, MK Ultra, not MK, well, yeah, kind of MK Ultra, but more like COINTELPRO, how you target people, how you traffic people, the covert operations that you unleash on people, okay? And yes, it's wrong. If your faith is really something that is of the divine, people will gravitate towards it willingly. You force people into these sort of things. And how you operated by using this cult type activity by participating. Now, I had made several videos talking about who Rashawn was. Rashawn, to me, was an abuser, okay? He did a lot of inappropriate things to me as a teenager. I have the right to walk away from people who abuse me. But you decided to assist the very person who created a lot of drama in my life, okay? And so I'm going to say that I am not comfortable with the LDS church, okay, by the things that you've done. Okay, I do understand that you assisted the Collins family, who are Jehovah's Witnesses, the kids of 533 who belong to several different denominations. With Rashawn, you know, I don't know. Apparently, he must have converted to the Mormon faith. I'm disturbed why, to me, any person of color would ever belong to the Mormon faith is beyond me, okay? But, you know, Rashawn has always been considered to be weak-minded. I have never done anything to warrant the kind of hate crime that you unleashed on me. And that's, I'm going to say, I'm acknowledging it for what it is. The intuitive message that's popping up into my mind right now is that I am a wise and humble social scientist. Yes. LDS Church, I'm going to tell you right now, you are fully, I'm holding you responsible for all the problems that I have run into. I moved into Bakersfield in 2000, August of 2000. Okay, my goal was to just get a job. I figured the cost of living here was fine. Unfortunately, the kids of 533, with their abusive behavior, decided to trail along with me somehow in a covert way by, you know, communicating with the churches, communicating with employers. And yes, this is a moral issue that I feel that you guys have taken no responsibility for. In fact, you have dumped all of the responsibility on me, and I am tired of it. Okay? Now, by you assisting the kids of 533 as well as the Collins family, number one, that was not your place to do that. That seems to me like a family issue, okay? And I am no longer recognizing these people as family. I have every right to walk away from people who abuse me, okay? And I would think when it comes to me not having okay, Rashawn, if he chose to become a Mormon, then that is a faith that he chose to decide to follow and adhere to. I have never signed up to being a Mormon, ever, okay? The message I'm getting right now is that people seem to be interested in me and having a relationship with Vladimir Putin. I want to make this very clear. Please stay away from me, okay? I do not want to have any sort of connection with the Mormon church, Mormon people, because of what you did. Now, I don't think you guys, because you guys are very ignorant when it comes to things like psychology and the mental effects that you create, I do believe that you guys do things that are inappropriate, okay? You do things that shock and emotionally disturb people, okay? You're the kind of people that I could see a lot of people who might be Mormon would get a restraining order against you because you do things that are shocking. You do things that are considered immoral. You do things that are considered unethical and illegal. And you have, and now because I have dealt with what you initiated, I deal with a lot of trauma, okay? Okay, the last issue that I wanted to address is this whole thing about what happened at the Valley Strong Credit Union, as well as my son's paycheck, okay? My son is not responsible for what you guys did. What you want to do is you want to play some form of divorce court. Okay, you want to play divorce court, okay, when it comes to employment. This is the reason why, number one, marital status is protected, number one, okay, and number two, uh, what I'm saying is when it comes to employment law, okay, uh, this is a topic that deals directly with stalking as well as human trafficking, utilizing systems like blacklisting, which is illegal. Okay, so this means that a woman such as myself who came to Bakersfield, right, could be trafficked by meaning a person assigns a job to them without them knowing. They work the job, and somehow in the back of their mind they feel entitled. They feel entitled towards that person's wages because they, in their mind, hey, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have this, and this. When I never made any formal agreement to be a part of that kind of employment under those conditions. This is a reason why employment law is written, or how can I say this, these laws such as peonage, like, being able to accumulate wages, and those wages are supposed to be paid to you. They are not supposed to be dispersed to anyone else. I do believe that you guys used all kinds of logic and reason to justify this ridiculous transaction that has left us in a financial devastation. And one of the reasons that you are using, that I am picking up intuitively, is something about me and Vladimir Putin. Okay, so once again, your tactics, I do believe that the Mormons of the early centuries, for example, you guys used a lot of illogical reasons for your attacks on people. And once again, in 2025, you are doing so again. Okay, I am not responsible, neither as my son. When you work a job under California law, now maybe you Mormons believe in things like debt bondage. You guys believe in all of this, okay? And unfortunately, because you have affected us, right, and I understand the law, I have every right to acknowledge the fact that you are creating a hardship on us for no apparent reason. Okay, no apparent reason. So the intuitive message that I'm getting is that the Bakersfield PSA that I just recently released is being discussed openly. I am no longer going to take responsibility for the trauma that you caused, okay? I'm not going to do it. Also, I do get the intuitive feeling that a lot of people are excited about me coming to know Vladimir Putin in the current time period. Hang on a second. Okay, so going back to this topic of me and Vladimir Putin. Now, Vladimir Putin and I go back, I believe, in many past lives, but in our last life incarnation, we were pretty close, okay? And we had our own personal views on things. And I do, through my intuitive readings, I have come to find out that, there was a lot of people causing problems for us to have a close relationship in our past life. And I do believe that there was some bullying that just recently went on. Like, I know, and I do believe that the obstruction of my son's funds, as well as what happened at Valley Strong Credit Union, was some sort of bullying tactic. Now, mind you, I had just recently found out that who Vladimir was in his past life, and I have also just recently found out that he was around in some way, and me coming to recognize who he was in a past life, okay? What I find inhumane about this, like I said, the cloning process, and the cloning process was done because people exhibited superior traits, okay? And I do believe that the entire process of cloning, as clones exist, okay, is very dehumanizing. It is wrong to manipulate someone's time, their life, their resources, and then, try to obstruct their rights, or, try to subjugate them with rules that do not apply. We are, I have a Social Security number like everyone else. I am somebody who has to pay for my retirement, pay into my things like retirement. You have prevented me from doing that. all because of a system that I would never endorse, I would never approve of, nor would I ever, this issue with the LDS church in general, whatever issues I had in my past life, it should have been handled peacefully. Okay, meaning I had every right to not want to be a Mormon. I had every right to want to feel comforted, and move away from people who were abusing me. But I do believe that the LDS church caused a lot of hardship for CB Braganza, and you have caused me hardship in my life as Maria Gordon for reasons that I will never apologize for. And the reason why is because I am who I am. I am who I am. And see, I would say that perhaps maybe when it comes to people like Joseph Mengele, his interest might be how is, me being who I am, is it possible to convert somebody or change somebody to modify their behavior, not without some sort of weird consequence. Okay. People are who they are. And so now the intuitive message I'm getting is that Vladimir Putin has woken up to who he is, right? And he is becoming comfortable with who he is. So now he has to make a decision. Is he going to be this person, or is he going to be in touch with his natural self? Okay, whatever. Okay, I resent the intrusion. I resent the kind of behavior and the inhumane treatment that people who came here on this earth against their will, okay, beyond their control, gets hurt and exploited by religious organizations, okay. This to me is a big moral stain on the churches in general, okay. I do know that LDS has always been, the master holders of information relating to genealogy and this sort of stuff, okay? So who people are, who in their past lives, what they're made up of, ancestral wise and everything else. I have come in peace. I was a peaceful person at CB Braganza. I'm a peaceful person now. I think what you guys resent is the fact that Vladimir Putin is who he is, and you feel threatened perhaps maybe by that. I wish that you would not make this a personal issue. You know what I mean? This is what a lot of people do. They think they take it personally. It's not a personal issue. What it is it is definitely, okay, what it is abuse, okay? And the reason why is because people like Vladimir Putin or any other person who was, somehow originated from these sort of programs, okay? We are human beings. That's why it's tragic, because we have arms, legs, hands, and feet. We eat, breathe, we do things that normal people, we are people, okay? But somehow or another, you want to control the narrative. You want to punish us for, or people like myself, for things that we naturally are, that are not illegal. Number one, it's not illegal for me to exist in this state of existence, nor do I believe I am violating any spiritual laws, okay? Now, I know that Mormons have different views. You guys have a different idea as to what is modest. Like, maybe I've seen Mormon women, the way that they dress, okay? I would not be quite that, what do you call it, restrictive, okay? But we all have our ideas, and I don't agree with the things that you do and the things that you say, and I definitely do not agree with how you operate, or at least how you have been operating when it comes to smear campaigns and trying to control the narrative as how other people get seen, okay? You have caused me severe damage. Your issue relating to blacklisting, as well as your power to create the, what do you call it, the shadow banning. I understand how big and influential things like the LDS churches are, and then combining it with other churches, that is lethal, okay? And I'm aware of what you did, and I'm telling you, what you did was wrong. It was immoral. It is illegal, and it is definitely not something that is in alignment with the divine, okay? So when I talk about satanic ritual abuse, yes, I'm going to put you and hold you responsible for what you enacted, okay? Because that's exactly what it is, okay? And how does satanic ritual abuse actually end up happening? It happens in different ways, okay? And yes, it could happen in institutions, religious institutions, even though they claim to be followers of the divine. And what happened is, you guys got affected and afflicted with the spirit of competition that I would have never wanted to participate in, ever in a million years. And you use some of the most low life people to do it. Jim Culligan is no one that I would respect. Okay. Rashawn Gordon is no one that I would respect. Okay. And just because Rashawn showed that he was close to Mormons in the places that he lived, like he has his friend Jeremy or whatever, you immediately take his side when you do not know the entire issues relating to that family. You need to understand that in the state of California and in other states, okay, the legal age is 18 years old. Okay, that means I can tell all of those people, Rashawn, Tanya, all of these people to get bent. That's exactly what I'm telling them to do. Okay, and they, if anything, okay, if anything, you should have never allowed yourself to associate with them because now they made you look bad. See, because now you ended up participating in something that brought you down and made you have public shame. So, and well as what you've done, you guys are predisposed to using these sort of bullying tactics anyway, based on my previous life, okay? So what you need to be is you need to be educated, and this is why I'm talking about Gordon's occupational engineering. I understand. I will tell you that the problems that I have growing up, okay, I should be looked upon as a survivor, okay, a survivor of a lot of abuse. Okay, so one of the reasons why you did not like me is because I'm somebody who did not finish the, what do you call it, the 4-year college program. Do you know that that is directly related to the bullying that I've received? I was bullied in school by you guys, okay? And throughout the years, it's just been this long nightmare, okay? I was trying to get back on top when I was working at Murray Family Farms, and that would have been a perfect opportunity for me to slide into that window. Meaning I already was working closely with the CPA, gathering documents for them. I would have been able to have a open dialogue and discussion with them. I would have been able to talk to Wayne Long and say, hey, you know what? Can you be my mentor into this, right? I could have worked something out, but you did not allow that to happen, okay? There are women such as myself, okay, clone or not clone, okay, who need protection. They need protection from abusive family members, okay, or whatever, you know, and you sit here and you assisted these people. And what you did is that's even more painful, okay, in this situation is that you, by doing what you did to my son's paycheck, as well as what you did in my Valley Strong Credit Union account, is you assisted these people in their illegal operation, people who are not entitled to anything that is mine, and then you want to penalize me and my son, okay, by putting pressure on us, right, for what you did. Okay, I want you to understand the sort of things that you do and how unfair it is and the burdens that you cause, okay? So when it comes to spirituality, yes, spirituality is supposed to be uplifting. I would say when it comes to the Mormon church, and maybe this is just the corrupt individuals that belong in your congregation, okay? Your spirituality should be improving your life. Your life should be improved by religion. Your life is supposed to be better. Your religion has caused nothing but heartache. It has caused nothing but heartache, and I didn't even ask for it, okay? It's not like I sat there and could say, oh, I willingly participated in becoming a Mormon because I signed up for it, okay? No, your church inflicted pain onto me, right, unknowingly, and then constantly wanted to put me through cycles of abuse, entanglements, financial obligations that I never agreed to. So what I'm saying is I am tired of what you guys are doing. And I'm not saying this to try to keep a fight. I'm trying to say, let's acknowledge what you did. Let's acknowledge the fact that I'm not responsible and we need to move on. I am not going to sit here and pay the price for what you did. Okay. Also, yes, me and I want to get to know Vladimir Putin. Okay. And yes, I do. I think it's important that, let me tell you something. People need, and yes, just because I am a clone, I have the same sort of requirements that regular people have. I need to be associated with people. I need to know people, okay? But you have made everything toxic to where I wouldn't touch anybody in this community with a 10-foot pole, nor do I want to be their friend. Why? Because of your demonic, yes, it's demonic. I said demonic, okay, behavior has affected everyone in this community, okay? And yes, this is what you did. And no, it was not of divine origin. It was all because you wanted to have the spirit of competition. You were coveting things that you perhaps maybe CB Braganza possessed, and you somehow wanted to be the dominant person. I do not believe in competing on spiritual levels, okay? Like I said, I don't know anything about when my father's apparition comes, but I'm very glad that it came. You know why? Because you ostracized me and put me in a situation that I shouldn't, leaving me open to satanic ritual abuse. Do not ever let this happen again in your congregation or any other church. The other message I'm getting right now is that marijuana is accepted. Now, I know that I've dealt with social penalization for a legal, okay, I'm going to say legal again, right? Because that bears repeating, a legal substance. Yes, marijuana is legal. Hang on a second. Okay, so back to the next slide. Okay, so I am currently working on a video talking about religion in the workplace. This is something that highly affected me. And I, somebody who goes to work, you know, and I just come home. I don't want to discuss or get into religious topics or anything. But I do believe that I was targeted. Of course, I was targeted. And I've been dealing with this issue for the last 12 years. The messages that have coming to my mind is that you guys are aware of my publication, the Swan Song Manifesto. And I do know that you guys were also trying to discuss, you know, who and what, just discussing, you know, I guess my little enterprise of what I created. All of those things belong to me, okay? I do understand that you guys have watched my PSA relating to mentioning satanic ritual abuse. I'm going to say that something is very strange about what went on in this community. Okay, I do know that a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people seemed hardwired to participate in this war that I do believe that you were responsible for. Okay, and no, all of this could have all been avoided had you guys followed the law. Okay, so the message I'm getting right now is that you guys did indeed do this on purpose, and what you did was wrong. Okay, it was not worth it to what you guys did, and I'm disturbed by the actions that were taken, especially since I would have never initiated this. This proves you guys are not in alignment with the divine. Okay, now we have maybe you guys, I don't know. All I want to say is that I do not want to have any sort of connection with your church. Okay, I do also know that a lot of people committed suicide in this issue, because I believe you guys were relying on these people who had four-year degrees to direct and facilitate how these things were supposed to go. Perhaps maybe somebody in the group thought it was a good idea to blacklist me. Perhaps somebody within this group thought it was okay to, you know, spread rumors or use these sort of rumors or certain criteria in the hiring process. All of these things that they were using are illegal. Okay, we talked about sexual harassment and this sort of stuff, and I also did include a little poster or posting in one of my videos, Vigilantes Must Go. Yes, I do believe that the vigilantes were instructed by your church, okay? And a lot of this has to do with something about Vladimir Putin. Like I said, what you guys have it in your mind that if something goes on in my life, I'm supposed to be penalized for it. You feel entitled to do this, okay? And like I said, I had no idea that any of this was going on. I had no idea that my family or the kids of 533 were involving themselves in my employment. These covert operations are wrong because you are dragging me through drama that I didn't ask for. Okay, I would never ask for any of the drama. Now, I do know that I have every right, as far as I understand through the legal system, I have every right to publish things I want to. Okay, so I created the Swan Song Manifesto after me having a spiritual awakening, understanding that I am CB Braganza, and coming to understand that I was adopted. It came from a very heartfelt place, And it came from a person who, obviously, I do not believe in the cloning process. I do not believe in the exploitation that the churches have participated in. I do understand that this has a very dark origin to it, and it's wrong. Okay, so um, I wanted to leave messages, as I get older, relating to what's been going on in my life as now, because my reality has completely changed. My reality used to be where I believed that these people were my siblings, blood siblings, okay? Like siblings in the correct order, where I came out of my mother's womb, Mary Gordon's womb, just like all of these other kids. I did not know when I was growing up that I was adopted. I just recently came to that understanding. I also come to understand that I'm going to look at our family as a family that was constructed through COINTELPRO. Okay, why? Because Rashawn was influenced by these Mormon kids, the Palladian kids, to bully me, to disrespect me, coming from people like Mormons. And I do know that when he moved out of the house, his relationship with this particular kid, I believe his name is Jeremy, okay, and his affiliation with the Mormon Church, he utilized his and took advantage of his gateway of being able to have access to such a large number of people, okay? And yes, Rashawn led people astray, okay? The message I'm getting right now in my mind is that my PSA discussing the satanic ritual abuse was very helpful, okay? Because that's exactly what it is. When you see these sort of covert operations, guaranteed that's exactly what's going on, okay? So the message I'm getting right now is that yes, society is ignorant, and this issue, from what I understand, like I said, I am never somebody who gets to see anything in newsreels, nor do I ever see these things on TV, because I don't watch TV, okay? I kind of like try not to get involved in what goes on in society as much as I possibly can, because I acknowledge the injustices and the bad things that go on in the world, and I find it disturbing. It is dark, and what happened to me with the Mormon Church, to me, is dark, okay? And I never did anything to warrant it. What these people, I would say that maybe the Mormons resent me, because based on my past life research, coming to understand how Maria Gordon was created through things like the experimentation through Joseph Mengele, I was created as a woman on purpose, okay? Now, apparently, Vladimir Putin, the message I'm getting is that Vladimir Putin would like to meet me. I would like to meet him too, okay? I want peace. I want peace. I do not want to have this going on anymore. I do not agree with my son being responsible for any sort of rent problems, issues relating to all of this, because you guys orchestrated. It is all your fault, and it's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. So the message I'm getting right now is so some of the things, like, for example, you feel like you want to punish me for. You want to punish me for creating the publication, letting the Soul Tribe know that this is what happened to them. Okay, you don't value. I do not believe that the Mormon Church values emotional growth. I do not believe that the Mormon Church acknowledges things like love, care, comfort. I look at, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, okay? Based on everything that I've experienced from the Mormon Church, you guys only represent things that remind me of something wicked, painful, obstructive. You seem very hateful. Okay, what you feared is that because why? Okay, if Vladimir Putin seemed very close to nature, okay, in his past life. That's all I'm going to say. I feel as though it's his responsibility or his choice to reveal who he is, who he was in his past life. I will not say his name, okay? But if this is who you are in a past life, this is who you're going to be in all of your lives, okay? So you're just basically masking it and pretending that you're not. Now, I would say that I resent the lack of understanding that your religious organization has, okay? You're very intolerant towards people that do not agree with what you do, and that is why I have a problem with you. Okay, I did not elicit any sort of relationship with the Mormon Church. I feel trafficked, targeted, and abused by you. Okay, I will never agree with you what you did to my son and putting him in this situation. You are at fault. You are at fault. You are at fault. Period. Okay, and you need to understand that. okay? Because I am tired of dealing and paying the price for what you've done. Okay, you already made it so that you've, number one, infiltrated things like my credit. You've ruined my ability to get a job. You've stamped out my childhood through influencing people like Rashawn. Rashawn was extremely, what do you call it? Extremely, mutable in that way. Okay, and like I said, I don't believe in the cloning system because this is not, if anything, that it relates to divine origin. It is all a man-made, orchestrated thing to sit here and try to feel as though you have power over somebody. Okay, that's what it is. I don't play those games. Okay, I don't want to ever have anything to do with it. This is one of the reasons why growing up I did not like politics. I did not want to discuss anything that people look at what do you call it? Controversial. I try to stay out of controversy. You know why? To me, it's only controversial if you throw it out there. I've never thrown anything out there. I always wanted to just be by myself. Okay, I believe that people and groups like you are what causes the corruption in the world. Okay, it is people with that sort of mindset that want to enforce their views on people and take those sort of actions against people. You are the corruption. You are the dirt in society. You are what causes people to hurt and be harmed. Now, like I said, there's something about me and me having some sort of connection with Vladimir Putin and our special abilities. Of course, if you have special abilities, you should utilize them. You know what I mean? And the only way that I have been utilizing my special abilities is to protect myself from the pain that you guys have caused me. Okay, I don't have a reason to sit here and pray for anything else. I feel as though I have enough, I guess. You know what I mean? But what you do you resent me. Okay, I understand that your organization resents me. You have targeted me. You have bullied me. Okay, I have done nothing. I will always hold this fact because I have done nothing. You resent me for showing that, yes, I have the right to have a job, even though you have prevented me from having one. You resent me for creating Gordon's occupational engineering because what you want to do is you want to somehow demote me. You want to demote me, right? You want to, act as if I didn't work for 25 years in accounting or whatever after you've already drowned me. Because what the fact of the matter is that the Mormon Church is closely tied into COINTEL groups as well as MK Ultra, and everything that you have done has showed it. Because you know good and well, okay, that I'm not responsible for what you created financially for us. You know it, okay? So I'm very much afraid of the kind of logic and reason that your organization uses because I'm a victim of your illegal operation, nothing more. Okay, and so I do believe that my story does have a mystical and prophetic feel to it, only because, well, what started as traumatizing, it was traumatizing for me to lose my job at Murray Family Farms. It was traumatizing to what happened after that. It was the targeting that I received after that. It was the bullying tactics, me fake job interviews, being put in, being baited by what do you call it, job boards such as Indeed.com. I'm not responsible for what happened in this community, and I'm very tired and frustrated because you abused an innocent person. So what makes this mystical and prophetic? It's the fact that this trauma really sparked my journey into my awakening, because I was extremely traumatized at coming to realize I was adopted, number one, and then coming to find out my origins. And yes, I don't like talking about this issue because it does borderline on the supernatural, but I do also understand that cloning is something that has been discussed in churches. People have been aware of these programs, whereas people on the outside were not. So yes, this is an actual issue. Okay, and the fact that I have this bloodline relating to King Solomon and so on and so forth, it's quite fascinating. I've never done anything to warrant this sort of abuse. The message I'm getting right now is vigilantes must go. It is another thing that has gotten the attention of the community. Yes, Gordon's occupational engineering, by me standing up to the injustices, I was mostly focusing on what my family or the kids of 533 was doing to me. I just recently came to understand, and I do know that the churches were involved in it, but this last attack, I am going to point my finger at the Mormon church, okay? And I understand that what's going on right now, for example, with my son's manipulation of his paycheck, somehow in your mind, you believe that this is something right and you think it's fair, okay? What you did in this community, okay, this involves the demise of several people who followed and got involved in this by listening to Rashawn. Okay, all of this stuff is 100% your fault, all of it. Okay, the message I'm getting right now is something about me and Vladimir Putin being together or knowing each other in a past life and did things together. I understand that in that time period. Now, this happened here in the United States, according to my intuitive messages, that I knew and met up with him in past lives, not just here in the United States, but various places within Europe as well. But, the truth be told, the LDS Church and any other religious institution, we've had religious freedoms in this country at that time when C.B. Berganza was here in the United States. So once again, we have these Mormons who were attacking, making my life miserable then, and you've made it miserable now. I do believe that you are what unleashes so much heartache and pain on the world, and I do believe that you feel entitled to do so. I do believe that there's something within your Mormon organization that creates darkness and makes life more difficult than it has to be. Okay, and like I said, I never signed up to be Mormon. I've never done anything like that. Perhaps maybe you use subjugating tactics to force people into your religion, and this is something that I am quite that circulates through my mind. I will tell you, as Maria Gordon, I never made any attempts to contact the Mormon Church, to join your church, to be afflicted by any of the pain that you caused on me. The only thing is that Rashawn Gordon, right, which is a kid of the 533, continued to associate with Mormons in his adult life, okay? And because of that, you guys are unleashing your hatred, your hate campaign on me, leaving me in a financial bind. My credit is ruined. I have not been able to find a job. I have dealt with blacklisting. I have dealt with shadow banning. And see, the thing would be is you think that's going to make a person want to convert to be a part of your religion. I am disgusted by your religion. I am going to identify your religion as something that promotes something demonic. Okay? You need to either change your behavior, or I don't know what else to tell you, but please do not affect my life anymore. Okay? So, when I made Vigilantes Must Go, it was not with Mormons specifically in mind. It was anybody who thinks it's okay to, monitor or try to create religious wars in the workplace, whether that be through the hiring process, or determining whether people get promotions or firing people because they are not of a certain religion. I'm going to be very clear about this. The LDS Church, you are in violation, okay? So the message I'm getting right now is that Vladimir is looking forward to coming to the United States, okay? And like I said, all of these are intuitive messages, and I'm going to be very upfront about why I'm talking about this, okay? Because I understand organizations such as LDS churches and other COINTEL programs, they would love to blame people and say that there's something mentally wrong with them, okay? Especially when you talk about things relating to psychicism. It has been quite known that COINTEL programs have targeted people who are psychic. So I'm going to say this, you know why? Because I understand that covert operations, you need to be very careful about them, okay? Because they are always filled with deception. If you were truly following the footsteps of Christ, nothing you would be doing would be deceptive. This would be out in the open. LDS Church, you need to recognize the fact that what you did, that's not to say that you could never have divine favor. I'm just saying is in your actions and what you did and the result of it was not divine, okay? So anyway, when it comes to me and formulating a relationship or friendship with Vladimir Putin, let me go ahead and change slides really quick. Okay, here's the other slide. Okay, so when it comes to me and who I am as a person, I talked about me, a person who is very sincere, okay? And I think that my spirituality is very foreign to a lot of people who rely on what I'm going to call a mechanical God. And what I call it mechanical God is because your institution decides who gets blessed and who gets cursed. Okay, it is not by divine will or operations to where things just naturally shift through supernatural means. You actually create situations where people get ostracized. You create the bullying. You create all of these things, okay? And it's not something that is done by God, okay? Now, what I want to talk about a little bit is the unnatural world that I had to deal with, okay? And why I feel as though people, and I'm not saying Mormons in general, what I'm trying to understand is where I want you to understand is where you went wrong. Why I am going to say what you do is not of the divine, and why I believe what you do is destructive to people, okay? Now, some of the tactics that were acted out on me was number one, isolation. Now, given the fact that I was around people who were all brainwashed, all COINTELPRO agents, all deep, dark people who have been brainwashed continuously by this covert operation, I guess in some ways I can be grateful for that. But it is human nature to want to be around people who they can receive and exchange things like affection and positive emotions. This is normal. There is a hormone called oxytocin, and it's produced in the hypothalamus. I can't pronounce this word. It's the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, okay? And it's released by the pituitary gland, okay? It plays a key role in things like childbirth, lactation, and social bonding. It is also referred to as the love hormone due to its effects on emotional connections and relationships. This is something that is important in, for example, child rearing, okay? Not just having the child, but being able to have an emotional bond to it. The reason why I think there's so many psychopaths and people who do destructive things, a lot of times, a lot of these people are coincidentally from adoptive homes. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I believe it's important to have the special bonding with the mother, the actual real connection, emotional bonds. Emotional connection is important in child development as well as throughout our adulthood. People need to have sincere relationships. So, like, for example, in this case where we're dealing with forced marriages, being bullied into certain situations, dealing with insincere people who are nothing but programmed. We live in a very dark world, okay? There is very little supply of love hormones, okay? So sometimes people are in situations where they have to provide that themselves. This can be done by looking at cute things, like, for example, Hello Kitty, something that invokes something positive within you, okay? And I would say doing horrible tactics like isolating a person, right? Shutting them off from social contact. Like I said, in this situation where I was dealing with this covert program where people were being influenced to have a negative view of me, to gossip about me, to judge me, to mistreat me, I could say I should be grateful for the isolation. However, people still need a positive, connection and to be able to receive oxytocin. So, of course, I like my little stuffed animals. I enjoy things that are cute, right? Okay, one of the things that is dangerous in these cloning situations or kids who are adopted is that they are deprived of things like oxytocin. They are deprived of those sort of emotions, and because they're around people who lack empathy, it is very frustrating for them. Yes, I am not happy to be associated with Mormon people because I'm going to be upfront with you. There is something within your practices that show me that you guys like to bully people and prevent people from living and being able to function in a normal way. Okay, you tend to obstruct the very things that people naturally need. Okay, when I think back on my associations with Mormon kids, I do know that there was a lot of emphasis on power, money. This is what you guys sit here and focus on, whereas I truly am a person who is able to produce love. Love, okay? So, love is something that I recognize. I'm able to give love, but I do not give love to people who are unworthy of it. Okay. Now, when I think of Vladimir Putin, the first thing that comes to my mind is I start smiling. I'm very happy to acknowledge this person, this past life person, this past life connection. I look at him as something that lifts my mood. I like Vladimir Putin. Okay, I like him. Okay, and yes, we should get to know each other. We should spend time together. There is nothing wrong with that. Okay, but see, the thing is that I believe in, yes, I do have family values. Yes, I do believe in doing things and having a good foundation. Whereas I believe, like, for example, forced marriages, being bullied into being in a relationship, like being with, I don't love Bruce, okay? So everything that I would create with him would be damned from the get-go, okay? From the very foundation, because I cringe every time I have to look at his face. I hate his relatives. I hate my situation, so on and so forth down the line. Now, I don't know Vladimir Putin in this life personally. I do know that I am concerned about him. I want him to be comfortable. I pray for his safety and his protection. I have affection for him, okay? Naturally, without anybody having to influence me. I don't need somebody. See, the problem with these forced marriages, like, for example, I talked about this kid I used to know, okay? And please forgive me for mentioning your name. I'm going to say it's Stephen Lyles, right? Stephen Lyles was not of an LDS religion, but he was of a Lutheran, I believe. His father was a Lutheran pastor, right? And see, his Lutheran pastor father, I don't know the origins of their relationship. So it would be inappropriate for me to say why he ended up having an affair or whatever. Okay, and this is public knowledge, and Stephen Lyles talked openly about this anyway. So this is why I'm talking about it. And because I truly do believe that Stephen Lyles was a part of my targeting, I'm going to throw this story out there. So, what I found interesting about this is that, what happened after he had this affair. He had an affair, I believe it was with a teacher, okay? And he stepped outside of his marriage, and the town turned against him. He could not find a job, and so he could not take care of himself, so he ended up committing suicide. See, now, why I find this wrong is because, number one, even though he was a pastor of his church, right? So I'm assuming he was the head of his congregation. There should be like a main headquarters that should have gotten involved with Mr. Lyles's issue, his case, right? And I'm using you as an example because how churches really should be structured, right? So the main headquarters of this Lutheran organization should have communicated with him and his wife and provided proper counseling instead of making this a public issue. So this is why I'm saying it could have very well been the fact that maybe he ended up committing suicide because his wife, right, felt slighted because he wasn't showing her the kind of attention. So she gossiped about him in his, out to the neighbors, and then people took sides and started exchanging sides, taking sides and showing favor for her, and then we had all this big drama, nightmare. Either way, I think it should have been to the case to where these people recognized their spiritual belief system, and they should have handled it in their spiritual belief system. They should have contacted the the headquarters of the Lutheran Church, right? And both of these people should have been counseled. And then also I was thinking, okay, I understand a lot of people back in those days were forced into these sort of situations. And yes, him being able to give love and them exchanging love equally matters, okay? Because if you are put together with somebody that you cringe, you don't like their touch, you don't like being around them, you're not compatible, it is nothing but a burden. So then you're going to marry a burden, and then you're going to produce more burdens, and guess what your whole entire foundation is based upon? Hate and resentment. This is a fact, okay? It is what it is, okay? So I'm not saying that, it was right for him to have an affair, but I do believe that Jesus would have been able to seriously set aside some issues and be like, wait, you know what? We need to handle this in a way, number one, that protects their privacy. Okay? Their privacy should have been protected. That should have been an issue that, number one, should have been told that this is a confidential issue that needs to be resolved in our congregation instead of throwing it out to the street and making him suffer even more than what he did. Now, like I said, was his relationship fair? If it was he did they consent to this relationship? So many things need to be taken into consideration, right? When these sort of issues happen. But they're not. You know, the first instinct it is kill that person, make them a target, bully them, whatever. Okay, but did this man really deserve it? Did we ever really look at the situation? No. The answer is no. But it's like people were out for blood. They just wanted to victimize somebody. Okay, like I said, I don't know why he married her or the origins of that, okay? But it's the point of people who are belonging to these particular religions, right? Who are supposed to be following the footsteps of Jesus Christ, and they never seem to do what Jesus would do. It always ends up being some sort of witch hunt, some sort of, punishment through public sector that doesn't belong out there. What exactly is your religious structure good for? Okay, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm saying is, if you have a religion and there is something that goes on, you should be able to get counsel based on the doctrines of your religion. You should not be a victim of some sort of campaign smear, because who's to say he could have been counseled by somebody. They could have either corrected their marriage, or they could have moved on in separate lives, depending on whatever they decided to do. But that was something that should have been decided in the privacy of their church, not something that became a public issue. So this is what I'm saying, is like there's a reason for why people belong to religions, and it seems as though that it always gets, somehow skewed or obscured or whatever. All I'm saying is, it's like I didn't sign up for a religion, and I resent the fact that you guys infiltrated my life. Okay? And then you do it in the most, horrific way, and you victimize people. Okay? I do not believe your actions are of the divine. Nothing that you do shows me that. I do not feel comfortable being in your situations, in your drama that I didn't ask to be a part of, okay? And yes, do I think what happened to Mr. Lyles, or Stephen Lyles' father, is tragic? I'm going to say that it was. Because you know why? His kids never gave off the feeling or vibe that they seemed like it was just normal to them. Okay? No, people like the Lyles as well as Rashawn, they normalize this sort of corruption. It is not supposed to be normalized. Not when you look at it from the standpoint of Jesus. Okay? So I feel as though you guys are full of shit. Okay? What it is about power and control. Okay? And that's what it's about. Nothing more. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and change this slide really quick. This is going to be a long video. Okay, so going back into this conversation of, I had in the past, I would consider myself someone who is asexual, okay? And I know that in the past, King Solomon had several wives and several concubines. I do believe that at some point, perhaps maybe Joseph Smith at one time was highly influenced by this ideology, because at one time polygamy was openly practiced within the Mormon Church, which is no longer today. Okay, now I also do believe that through the cloning process, certain things have happened, or been like your sex change would be determined on, like, for example, the previous life that you had. King Solomon was not somebody who, I guess, but King Solomon in general, his past lives, I do believe that he was a natural man while he was in the man's body. I believe that he was extremely sexual. And this is indicated by his numerous wives and concubines. This could very well be one of the reasons why in past lives I have returned as a eunuch, right? So it's probably to prevent me from having offspring, something along those lines, okay? This is how this cloning issue works, I suppose. I did mention this issue relating to satanic ritual abuse. I am going to link these issues together. Okay, so going back to oxytocin. Yes, even though I am somebody who is not sexual in this lifetime, and I do not have strong sexual urges, I am somebody who can take sex or leave it. So I do believe that there has been discussion, even perhaps maybe among this weird group, about my relationship with my former relationships. I have not been in a relationship with Bruce Collins, nor do I wish to be. But I do believe that they were talking about my Bruce Collins is somebody who is obviously he's male with male genitalia. It is my sex life is not of the for has never been a forefront in my life as Maria Gordon. It is not important. Okay, my interest in Vladimir Putin is transform. What do you call transcends any sort of need to discuss or make that my main focal point. When I was married to Joel, even though I do believe that Joel was a participant within this weird setup arrangement, my relationship was most enjoyable with Joel as we were talking. Okay, these are the sort of bonds that I prefer. I prefer intellectual and psychic bonds more so than sex. But when it comes to oxytocin can be received just by and given just by hugging. It can be done by holding hands. It can be done by looking in each other's eyes. It can be done. I find certain things cute that people do. This is where it gets produced. Okay, it is not necessary for me to have a sexual relationship. So that was one of the things that was coming through my mind as these people were discussing it. Also, I do believe that when it comes to relationships, I believe that the best kind of relationship is one that is between two people. I resent the sort of intrusion that was going on. Discussing who I was going to be with and all of this other stuff is very, very strange to me. I'm not comfortable with it, okay? Also, okay, so I have discussed that. Yes, as King Solomon, I was somebody that this particular group has always felt competitive to me. I need to understand that I do not ever want to compete with anybody, okay? Now, something about Vladimir Putin checking out my music selections. This probably could be done through Pandora, which I find Pandora, the name Pandora, interesting. You know why? Because Pandora is a very old, I believe, a story relating to mysticism about this story of being curious and opening a box that unleashes things. Okay. I do believe that something about stalking and perhaps maybe Pandora could very well be there's some sort of connection there. Okay. But yes, he probably does had access to things like Pandora or been able to see what I have on my YouTube account, and I have a love of different kinds of music because perhaps maybe Vladimir Putin has shown interest in me. They feel as though they have the right to abuse me. What you're doing is incorrect. Okay, it's wrong. Okay. Like I said, most of this stuff that was going on, it was beyond my control, and I had no knowledge of. I'm at because I have not had any formal conversations with Vladimir Putin. I've never had any discussions with him. I don't have any contact with him. Okay, I did write him a small message on like an Instagram account just to let him know that I was concerned about him. I hope that his spirits are up, that kind of stuff. But that's it. Okay. So when it comes to oxytocin, stuff like that, yes, I do believe in that. And yes, I do believe that your religious group does things to prevent people from functioning. And I do understand that your churches or this MK alternative motives, okay, have been orchestrated through churches, okay? And I would say that how you behave, it looks like it's a residual effect of that sort of mind control and that learning, okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and change slides. Okay, now I understand when it comes to Mormonism. Now, I never really studied, how you counsel people when it comes to marriage or whatever, but here in the state of California, two people have to be consenting to enter into marriage. And yes, you need a marriage license. Okay, you need a marriage license to be considered married in the state of California. Now, I do believe that you may have authorized or thought that you had the right to authorize who has access to my stuff, but the fact is I've never been legally married to anyone in the Collins family. Okay. Actually, my son is considered to be legally, my son is considered to be illegitimate, meaning that he does not have a father recognized on a piece of paper. Now, I know that the father is Bruce Collins, okay? Biologically, yes, okay? But I have never legally married Bruce Collins, okay? And I understand that it's very confusing for a lot of religious people who have been convinced that it is their religion that rules the world, but unfortunately it doesn't. Okay, we have regular laws that we abide by. Okay, so what was acknowledged in this, okay, is that I had created some works. Okay, I did like some Patreon, I created a Patreon account, created Ko-fi in my times of unemployment to where I could, stay afloat. I ended up not being able to get a job based on your little group, okay, which I know was orchestrated by the LDS church, as well as using other churches to prevent me from working, using by instructions, bullying techniques, and you were trying to hold me accountable for possibly Bruce Collins' future endeavors, okay? I find this offensive. The reason why I did not marry Bruce Collins is because I recognized him to be a very racist individual, and I felt as though it would not be an emotionally fulfilling thing. As a matter of fact, I figure it would be emotionally devastating for my son, Houston Gordon, to know his legal father. His father, okay? His father, Bruce Collins, okay? So I decided not to marry Bruce Collins, and I was determined to raise him on my own. What happened was is that I had been trafficked by the Collins family for many years, as well as dealing with your setups of emotional abuse within the workplace. I will tell you, when it comes to somebody who stood up to the plate to take responsibility for my kid, I could sit here and say that it was me. I do not believe that what you guys did was moral or in any way right, and I am shocked that you would take the side of a man who exploited my son, has exploited my son up to this very day, and this is the situation that we are in right now about the delayed rent payment. And this is something that I find shocking, that you would give these people access to something that does not belong to them. Okay, so this to me is very devastating by what you have done. Okay, currently I am the owner of all of my works. They are owned by me. They have nothing to do with Bruce Collins. I have never been married to Bruce Collins. Joel Graham and I have been divorced since 2018. All of my creations have just been created in 2023. All of that belongs to me. All of it. Okay. Now, mind you, I have not generated any income from the Swan Song Manifesto newsletter. It was never meant to generate income. What it was is, like I said, I had found out that I was a part of the cloning system, found out I was adopted. I find this whole situation very tragic, which I wanted it to end a long time ago. Meaning, I wanted to stop being trafficked. I wanted to stop dealing with all of these struggles, the bullying, all of it. I wanted it to end. I also found it very traumatizing after making statements about the emotional sexual abuse that my brother, Rashawn, the former kids of 533, inflicted on me, but yet you continue to assist him in my stalking. Okay, which allows me to believe fully that your religion is not based on walking in the footsteps of Christ. It is actually walking in the footsteps of men, as well as your own personal agendas of hate, which I do not appreciate. So yes, I own my own stuff. This may be something that is unusual within the Mormon faith. However, I am not Mormon, nor does the United States operate on Mormon standards or principles. Okay, we have freedom of religion here. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so I want to say this really quick. Everybody has or should have some sort of idea or vision as to how they're going to live when they grow up. That's how I was. Of course, things did not turn out exactly the way that I wanted them to. However, I know my level of comfort. I know that throughout my life as Maria Gordon, just alone as that, I've encountered a bunch of rude people, and I understand a lot of it has a lot to do with this cloning issue and this whole idea of setting me out to be a bad person. Well, the thing is that, yes, I believe that I am favored by the divine. I may not be respected in the Mormon church, but I am respected by the divine. And this goes to show you, because I have the ability to use discernment. Okay. I do have my own way of looking at things. I understand that you guys are hardwired into your belief system. And, the problem with it is that I don't agree with you, and there's nothing I can do to change that, okay? I also understand that some of these messages that are coming through my mind are going to be random, okay? Yes, angels are the same as aliens. We are people, or beings, I believe, beings that had a pre-existence in heaven. This is what makes me so unique, okay? This is the reason why people would sit there and stare at me when I was a kid. This is the reason why I was a paranormal phenomenon in the 1960s. And this is the reason why the churches did what they did. And this is the reason why I ended up with the Gordon family. I get it, okay? But see, like I said, no one ever communicated that to me. And see, the very fact that this was a covert operation tells you that it was sinister to begin with, and it was wrong. And you should apologize to yourself, I mean, to the divine, because this is obvious something that was orchestrated by man. It is not the design of the divine, okay? Also, I do understand that there's been people who are now looking at marijuana in a different light. Marijuana and any herb or plant that comes out of here and out of this, that comes from the ground, is a gift from the divine. Everything that we have and what we need in order to survive is here. I believe this, okay? And maybe the LDS church resents that or doesn't believe that. But like I said, we have freedom of religion. And because we have freedom of religion, I'm going to address the LDS church. This is what I believe, okay? So the message that I'm getting right now into my mind is it's now that you understood who King Solomon was and that you guys abused a chosen one. I think it's really important for me to mention this brief story or account that happens in the Bible that's been notated where King Solomon was surrounded by a lot of people in his life. So what's repeated in these Bibles or these stories is something that continually happens throughout each life, right? Okay, so basically people resented the fact that King Solomon was somebody who was considered to be wealthy in his past lives as King Solomon, right? And so even though I look at myself with my particle board furniture and my plastic, what do you call it? Yeah, containers that I use as furniture. I don't even have real wood in my house, okay? But still, okay, King Solomon was looked upon, and this is not, it was because he was able to make a life and living for himself easily, okay? And just like today, I was dealing with people who were willing to abuse me because of the same thing. I didn't do anything. I'm supposed to provide for myself. So this same situation happened in a past life, okay? Same situation to where I'm somebody who is well skilled in business. The Mormons knew this, okay? The cloning facilities knew this, okay? So they were like, okay, well then let's make her a woman. Let's make this person a woman coming this time around, okay? And I'm telling you right now, okay, but everything that you guys do is abusive. Or what happened up in that COINTEL program up till like the 50 years ago, when they will actually be gone 50 years ago. Because apparently through my readings, I have come to find out that this was being discussed in the 60s, okay, about how I was going to come back here on Earth, okay? So now they made me a woman on purpose, right? But here's the fact. Now I understand that they did this to try to hurt me. I never did anything to deserve this, okay? Nothing. Okay, so these people are in the wrong. I understand how the program works, okay? So anyway, yes, when it comes to, the other message that comes to mind is something about Vladimir Putin. So when it comes to me being friends with Vladimir Putin, yeah, I would want to have, at this point in my life, after dealing and coming to understand what happened to me in this next phase of my life, I would like to write more about things that are going on in my life. I would very much welcome Vladimir Putin into my life so that we can talk and share things together. This, to me, I think this Swan Song Manifesto newsletter is kind of a big deal. I really do think it is, because this ties into so many things. And right now is a time that in order for us to change and move forward in life, people cannot continue on in this world being in the darkness. And this is what it is. It's been darkness. It's been darkness for very many ages, okay? And so this is why I'm talking about, these chosen ones, okay? These chosen ones that at one time it was predicted that we were going to be revealed and we were going to be released. You know why? Because we need to know the truth and make the decision of our own salvation. Yes, this is true. We can come back on a world that to me is just completely unfulfilling, controlled, and in darkness, and in blindness, and in confusion, and in twisted knowledge, okay? And willing to hurt other people because it's chaotic. There's nothing but chaos here. Or we can choose to go to heaven. Okay, and so this is one of the reasons why the cloning operations are supposed to stand by and find out what's going on. I will tell you, I have no desire to come back on this earth. Why? Because You have taken the life out of everything. Institutions like yours is what brings darkness on this earth. Okay? This is the truth. Okay? Everything that you do, it prevents people from behaving normally. Just like your little tactics of isolation, for example, whether it's in just one person or putting people in situations that deprive them from having the natural flow of being a normal human being. Being a normal human being, like I know that there's so many things that, like, for example, people naturally need sunlight. There was a time where you guys didn't want me to sit here and go outside. You know what I mean? When you need, I naturally need this. And the fact is, it's like there was no consideration to me for the fact that you guys never came out and told me that I was a clone or anything like that. So I will tell you, your foundation is built upon abuse. Your very foundation is built upon abuse, okay? And then because of that, until you recognize that, that's the only way you're going to heal. I myself make a point to make sure that that kind of stuff does not happen to me. I have the right to say, stay away from me, okay? Whatever you created in this community should be cleaned up. I'm tired of dealing with it. I didn't deserve it. And I'm always going to hold on to that. You know why? Because it's true. I moved into a community where and then I had the kids of 533 follow me, use all their connections, including the Mormon Church, which you guys played a huge role in, to create this problem. I don't deserve it. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so some of the reasons that you have prevented me from staying and being employed, which I find very, very offensive, abusive, because I'm somebody who wants to take responsibility for my life, and I'm somebody who I do not believe in trying to be a burden to anyone, so of course I do my best to be self-sufficient. So some of these reasons are: number one, you do not want me to shop, you don't want me to buy anything. Okay, why do I deserve to be treated that way? I shouldn't deserve to be treated that way. I deserve to be able to buy things that I need and replace, which I would say I spend a lot of time replacing stuff, because what you guys have done is you'll keep me out of work for a long period of time, and then that depletes my little, collection of like soap, dish soap, hand soap, shampoo, stuff that you need, toiletries and so on and so forth, that are necessary, okay? I also resent the fact that you try to dictate what people buy, and it's not, because it has nothing to do with rebellion. What I find upsetting to you is that you feel as though you're the ultimate power source of authority in how people live. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just that, obviously I was not trained or orientated this way. Okay, I was raised with the Gordon family, who taught us that we had freedom of religion. This was also enforced in the school system at that time. Okay, also, this is something I have always believed in. So I study with Mormonism, study some forms of Mormonism, but of course I chose to not adhere to that. Also, I feel as though you are playing mechanical God by deciding who gets what, who gets blessed with prosperity, meaning to obtain other material items, or who gets cursed. And because this is not by natural means, because honestly, I do see myself as somebody who has the skills, talent, and abilities to practice business, and practice business well, whether that be through a 1099 contract, being a subcontractor or contractor, or working as a regular employee. I always perform my job well, so I'm always having to deal with your obstruction, your forms of abuse, okay, because you do not want me to have stuff. And see, that's really wrong, and it's a form of abuse, okay? Your blacklisting is illegal, your campaign against me is illegal, everything is illegal, and I got caught up in drama. Also, you also want to inflict pain on me, as well as you encourage the community and the people who are influenced by you to try to influence them to inflict pain on me for any silly, frivolous reason that may be offensive to your ego, but not necessarily illegal or anything within spiritual violation. This goes to show you how it was when it came to C.B. Berganza. C.B. Berganza also dealt with unfair treatment, not based on scripture, not based on anything other than your personal resentments towards his beauty, meaning the way he dressed specifically for him, which I will say, when it comes to C.B. Berganza's origins, okay, of course he's not going to sit here and only want to be around European attire. he was a very exotic person who traveled a lot, was inspired by different things that spoke to him. And because obviously this particular individual never really had roots, okay? Roots, like, some people can trace their roots back down to something specific, like, okay, they're Mexican, so therefore they're going to gravitate towards this. It seems as though C.B. Braganza was an eclectic individual on purpose, okay? So what other messages I want to talk about? And this is who he is. It's going to reflect in everything that he does. Even to me to this day, I know people talk about the way that I speak. I've had black people resent me for it. I've had white people resent me for it. What it is this is not something I make up. It is how I speak, right? And so they'll resent it because they don't understand it. Why the way I speak is a result of everything that I've experienced, right? And so actually, this is how I'm supposed to speak. If they criticize the way that black people speak, like in a form of ebonics, if they wanted somebody to correct that, and the way that I speak, which is correct, proper English, right, then they want to chastise that too. That seems more like a hatred towards of my race, okay? Anyway, which I'm just pointing that out as a fact. Also, the messages that I'm getting is that people like the idea of following employment law, and that's what really it should be. Okay, this is one of the reasons why, when I dealt with the problems at Murray Family Farms, everybody seemed surprised that I would want to seek some sort of legal action, because I'm aware of the fact that I'm deserving of it. You know why? Because of the situation I'm in now. You have put me against the wall and then tried to use coercive tactics to bully me into submission, including this last issue with the rent issue, with my son's paycheck being, misappropriated into the hands of people who were not authorized to do this. This is done through illegal employment tactics, so on and so forth, okay? You have had so many violations, it is not even funny, okay? So what other thing do I want to talk about? Okay, so the other message I'm getting, and this could very well be the case, I understand that you are a huge entity, so you can be able to block me from seeing things that you don't want me to see. This is one of the reasons why I suspect that certain things are shown up on my news feeds where other things are not, right? I understand that it can operate that way. How it is done, I don't know exactly for sure, but I do know that this issue is widespread, okay? Something about, you resent the fact that that all of my creations are mine, okay? And then also, that what's being on the news right now is this particular issue about this workplace issue. I have been exploited for a very, very long time, and I have been affected for a long time because of what you've done. And I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to acknowledge it out loud in the open. Yes, it is the LDS church that played a huge role into this, okay? And I'm tired of dealing with it. What you do using those sort of methods is illegal. It's illegal, okay? And you walk around or walk away thinking that what you do is just and fair. The situation you put me in is not just or fair. What it is a result of a hate crime, nothing more, okay? I'm going to go ahead and change slides. And of course, what is at the heart of all of this is because I guess, people wanted me to change the way that I live my life. I believe that I live my life correctly. I believe that, I'm somebody who promotes peace. I'm a very peaceful person. I'm very focused on my own life, which I believe is the part of the answer in order to bring about peace in general, because I feel as though it's people in their state of dis-ease is what creates friction inside of them. Therefore, they have to direct it somewhere else, usually to somebody else. This is their little vicious cycle of being a part of the same mind control program that has been, in part of so many different institutions where people do not have not learned how to take accountability for their own shortcomings. And I do believe just by how you retaliated against me multiple times, you must be a demonstrator of this sort of bad behavior that other people have seemed to normalize. Okay, I'm somebody who has been 100% victimized by your organization, and this is a fact. Right down to me coming down, right down to me being bullied as a kid, and having these kids who were influenced by your faith. Now, I'm going to look back on my childhood, and I am not trying to point fingers, okay? And I ask that you listen to me in a state of humility. Because if you really are somebody who is trying to act as though, or you want to be a part of some sort of connection to some divine being, right? Then this is something that you need to do for your own spiritual growth. If not, I'm just going to shrug my shoulders and acknowledge the fact that this argument that you've seen to have created with me is 100% based on power, money, popularity, status, all the things that the divine is actually against. Yes, these things are necessary in order to survive, but you should not ever make that the focal point. And it seems as though you wanted to wipe me out for those very purposes. Okay, so this has something to do with the way that I live. I live a very humble life. Okay, try to find comfort in things that I can't, that are within my reach. I would have preferred, of course, to have lived in a nicer home if I had the chance to do that. But I've learned to make do with what I have. And what I've said is that I do not have much. Most of the things that I have, I've accumulated throughout the years. Some of these things are from like the dollar store. Okay, I feel as though your desire to try to prevent me from being able to, number one, acquire and to make a living for myself, as well as to try to dictate to me what I can and cannot buy. It is very reminiscent of like Jim Crow laws of the 1950s and so on and so forth. I find it offensive because this must be based upon my race, nothing else. Being a consumer is giving me the flexibility to make choices as to how I spend my money. Okay, I can either spend my money on a pair of boots, or I can go ahead and buy whatever I need that is necessary. For example, rain boots, okay, if I need them, or even choose to want them because of the simple fact that I choose to treat myself, okay? I know that there has been monitoring of things of me going to the 99-cent store. Perhaps this could very well be the fact that Rashawn was not able to take care of himself. And because he had personal issues and had to deal with his own personal failures, he wanted to use other people so that he could have things go his way by preventing me from having things that made him feel better. Whatever nightmare drama that you guys assisted him in, you were wrong to do so, okay? Everybody has the right to have employment, period, or seek employment, okay? And by blocking me on behalf of something that is selfish, right there, trying to force me into a marriage to a man that was already married to somebody else, didn't take responsibility for his kid from the very get-go. And I would assume that perhaps maybe people of your mentality think, well, you know what, that's what you get for having an illegitimate child. And this is what I'm going to tell you about the person that you claim to worship or acknowledge as the Son of God. Jesus would have understood that. That is something I did in a period of my life, okay, as a part of my growth period. And yeah, I would say having a kid out of wedlock is a big responsibility, and it was something that I would highly advise against, okay? But you know, I learned from my mistake, and obviously I have repented to the divine, and I believe because of the divine has led me throughout the rest of my life that it has been understood that I have been forgiven, okay? It is people like you, as well as people like Rashawn, that like to use these sort of things against people, much like the issue of Stephen Lyles' family, to where this poor man had to end up taking himself out because of a vendetta, a personal vendetta that should have never been discussed among a bunch of fucking people. So excuse my language, but I am beyond getting angry about what has gone on in this community and how the ill treatment that I received on behalf of other people who were too cowardice to confront these issues by themselves. And to be honest with you, the fact of the matter is I am over the age of 18, and these people should have never had any issue with me in the first place, and I resent their intrusion. And what's more is I resent your helping these people with their goals and their missions. So right now, the message I'm getting right now is that everyone turned against the Collins and no one supports the kids of 533. That I'm very grateful for. Now, I also want to say that, you know, my desire to stay separate from what most people look upon as normal, okay, within their religious structures, is something that I am disturbed by, okay? Just like, you know, you guys more focus on winning. You want status. You want to be in some sort of group. You look at, you know, people's existence like it's a football game, okay? That is not a part of my spirituality. My spirituality is just to receive messages from the divine. Enjoy those messages and enjoy that relationship. And, you know, I don't even really want to know the inner workings of what goes on in your congregation, but I will kind of contrast it to stories or shows like The Walking Dead. And the reason why I say this is because it is obvious and quite apparent that people have been highly indoctrinated by mind control programs, which is one of the reasons why you had such a high level of participation within this program. Okay, so when I think about shows like the night of the Walking Dead or whatever, I think about that TV show where it's illustrated where these weird people are walking around not being able to think for themselves, and the fear is that you do not want to get bit by them, you do not want to be part of their stuff, and this is exactly how I feel among people, especially since you decided to unleash this hate campaign against me, as well as affect my son and our finances, our reputation, and everything. Why? Because I chose not to be a part of a family that was abusing me. Okay, you have victimized me unnecessarily. You have pointed the finger at the wrong person, and you have assisted people who are very narcissistic. For that reason, I am very upset, and rightfully so. Okay, so the demand of messages that are coming through my mind at this moment is that yes, I do like Vladimir Putin just how he is. I am not expecting anything from him, and I understand because of how the cloning process works. Some people are born with stuff and some people are not. I do accept him the way that he is. Also, I do understand that there are newsreels that my story is being covered. This is important for you to understand. Hey, you know what? You need to step up and take responsibility and accountability. Admit the fact, you know what? You've been stuck in this religious doctrine so long that you forgot that there are other laws that are on the books, okay? And this is not what runs the United States, okay? Also, the issue was about me being free to live as I wish. Like I said, you haven't participated in a cult type activity to where you had Catholic people joining in on this, Seventh-day Adventists, you have, obviously Mormons, you got, whoever, anyone that you could possibly use, okay, which really shows me that this is not about religion. It's not really about some sort of conversion because you're concerned about my eternal soul. No, this is just a personal vendetta that you are using and orchestrating on behalf of monsters like Rashawn Gordon, okay? I am at peace with all religions, okay, and I'm just going to leave that at that. Like, I don't have any sort of issue. I know that some people have their own personal traditions based on their cultures that they incorporate into their religion. This has been well known just about in every faith, okay. So, and for me, like I said, you have to understand, King Solomon and all these incarnations was a very eclectic person, traveled a lot of places, okay? And so I would think a lot of churches resented the fact that C.B. Briganza did not want to endorse their religion. I'm sorry, I cannot do that. Okay, I cannot do that. I cannot endorse your religion. I cannot sit here and say that I'm okay with what you do, how you practice it, how you force people into doing the things that you do, how you do everything you can to maintain control, how you actually seem to stomp out everything that even resembles a little bit of God, okay? So no, I cannot do that, okay? And I feel as though you guys are in error, and because you incite terror and because you incite fear in people, you are not the divine that I recognize, okay? So, I'm going to move on to the next slide. And of course, I think I'm going to wrap this up real quick, but I do think it's important to say, when it comes to people having different views on a religious level, that's going to be encountered. And maybe, this is new to a lot of people in this community because most people just kind of go along with the flow. But, I realize that I have been abused throughout these last years. Actually, I'm a lifelong victim of this issue, but I would say affecting my work life and how things have been going on in my personal life. I have suffered because of this program. And I do know that it's not conducive to any well-being, and it has caused me tremendous pain. I also would say, and this to me makes me believe that you guys are people who feed off of this. I believe that you guys are extremely narcissistic, or at least the people who play key roles in this within this group of the LDS Church. I know Rashawn is narcissistic. I know Jim Culligan is narcissistic. Whatever the case is, accumulation of a bunch of people with their own self-interest and their own particular hatreds, in this particular group. I'm mortified by it, okay? I am somebody who, shows good faith, meaning, I'm somebody who tries to work, having a job, taking care of myself. I don't try to, I never expected any handouts from the Collins family. I literally meant to, do things on my own. And really, that to me should be commendable because I'm trying not to be a burden on other people, okay? So before I close, let me see if there's something else I want to say really quick. Um, I did make the Bakersfield public service announcement that I did release, and the reason why I did it is because you are playing a dangerous game with your covert program. Your covert program is proof of the mind control, which everybody in this community already knows is going on. Okay, and yes, I can tell by the vibration that I deal with sometimes, when I'm like encountering these people or they do act awkward. I'm tired of that awkwardness being created by what I know is utilizing these mind control programs to try to bully me. Okay, and what you're trying to do is you want me to change who I am. I cannot change who I am. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Why should I wear dirty clothes? Why should I? It's like you want me to, repress myself, and it's not a matter. It is just how I choose to live my life, And you constantly want to bully me or compare me or I don't want any more of the kids of 533 or Bruce Collins family or you thinking that I'm a part of your Mormon belief system, and even worse, enacting your weird twisted form of judgment and justice, right? Which you think that it's fair that I'm in the situation that I'm in right now. Okay, you literally wiped me clean of everything that I have, and with your logic and your reasoning is foolish. It's like I feel as though you're trying to play some form of divorce court, divvying up assets to some sort of relationships that I never consented to be in the first place. And this is the This is the result of my victimization as a victim of human trafficking. Like I said, it's like I had no idea that Bruce was going around arranging jobs for me. I would have never consented to something like that. So that you guys recognize this as some form of marriage. No, I'm not legally married to Bruce Collins, okay? And even if I was, it is wrong for people to, number one, blacklist or prevent people from having other employment opportunities for those reasons. You are treating employment like it's divorce court, and this is what's wrong. And this is what happens to women who are victimized, who end up being employed by employers who are friends of these particular people. They're taking sides, they're playing games, and the end result is it ends up hurting the woman. You have harmed me entirely too much, and I deserve compensation. And I should have received compensation a long time ago. At Murray Family Farms, that is when it all happened, when it exploded, okay? And that was already traumatizing enough. It was traumatizing enough. Why? Because I was already realizing I need to get on with my life. I need to start building my career. I knew I was getting older. I knew my mother, who at the time I was unaware of the fact that I was adopted at the time. Regardless, I kept thinking, when you're young, older, you start thinking, okay, well, if something's not working, I can go and live with my mom. I can go ahead. I always have some sort of net. I realize, hey, that my mom is getting older. She's not going to be able to be a net. So I need to start. Yes, I care about my future. Yes, I care about long-term stability. People think that just because I told a lot of jokes when I was younger, or I was being goofy. Yeah, I'm goofy because I have entirely too many serious issues that go on in my mind. And all the serious issues that I've been forced to deal with, to cope with, have all been a result of what you guys have done. Okay, I have been treated in the most disrespectful manner, and I feel as though everything that you have done has been to slight me, to put me at a disadvantage when I had nothing to do with this. Okay, and so the message I'm getting right now is that because I'm being acknowledged for being the owner of my stuff, I am not going to go to war for my own things. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like your mentality is if somebody has something, then you feel like you're compelled to bully people out of it. Or you feel as though this is some sort of challenge or some sort of war. I don't know. This is not anything spiritual, and it is meaning religious, and it should not be any of that kind of mindset should be in your doctrine, and it certainly is not in alignment with anything that's relating to any sort of law. stealing, manipulative type coercion is always something that's going to be looked down upon, whether that be in religious terms or being something relating to the regular law. Okay, so what we have once again is people within these groups of people, this group that you have formulated, doing bad things and trying to point the finger. Yes, you should be held accountable for all of it. All of it. 100%. I will not take any accountability for any of it. I am standing up and saying I should not have to deal with any of me worrying about being in my situation. I shouldn't have to sit here and be upset, rabbled, stressed out or anything, because all the fault lies on you. Yes, you. Okay, so now I'm going to wrap this video up, and now I'm going to finalize this by saying this one thing. Okay, I'm going to just continue writing my newsletter and focusing on things that are cute to buy online. Things are going to uplift your mood. I am going to get off of this subject. Okay, but basically where I am right now on December 29th, today is December 29th, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. Anyway, this particular topic is at the current moment is I'm dealing with, being financially pressured and being bullied, for issues relating to my rent, dealing with paycheck being withheld with my son, and dealing with drama that I should not be dealing with illegally because of these people and manipulative type coercions being used against me on behalf of the Collins and the kids of 533. Okay, I walk around and deal with everybody's drama being placed on me as if I'm supposed to sit here and carry the weight of these people's wrongdoing. I'm the one who stresses out at night. I'm the one who has to deal with depression. I'm the one and it's unnecessary because I have the right to live my life. Okay, and I'm tired of dealing with the drama. Okay, so I deal with, I'm tired of dealing with a world that is so topsy-turvy that to me it should be obvious to anybody with half a brain that it has nothing to do with being in alignment with Jesus. This is false religion, period. Okay, and I'm shocked at it. I'm disturbed by it. I'm absolutely disturbed by it. Okay, I've been nothing but abused since coming here and dealing with this issue. So anyway, I am going to finish up the rest of my newsletter talking about other things. I am tired of talking about this issue, and I'm tired of people, keeping their names hidden or trying to act as if this should be a covert issue, to where, like, Rashawn's name was supposed to be protected, Jim Culligan's name is supposed to be protected, the Mormon Church is supposed to be, protected, while I'm the one who gets targeted. I'm tired of dealing with your abuse. Okay, it's about, if this goes to show you, you're either a part of a fake religion that deals with satanic ritual abuse, okay, and openly acknowledges it, or you're actually somebody who cares about walking in true peace, okay, meaning that you are going to take advantage of accountability for your ill behavior. That is contrary to anything that I could ever even think of on a spiritual level. So anyway, I'm wrapping this issue up. I'm tired of talking about it, but that's where it is. So the key points is that right now the focus is on me and trying to get to know Vladimir Putin, me at this current moment, thinking about my future, not being extremely enthusiastic about my future and having to live and exist in a world after dealing with being victimized of this sort of crime. Okay, so this is where we are. We'll see how it happens in 2026. Thanks for watching.